Hi, welcome to the mini mystery quilt series with GourmetQuilter. This is part of our 2020 Tasty Treats series that we're offering this year through the website GourmetQuilter.com, and I'm Susan Clare, GourmetQuilter. So the mini mystery is a 20-part mystery quilt series that we're doing. There is a pattern that you can purchase to download all the parts. There's 20 parts through the website GourmetQuilter.com. And what we're doing is a little instructional part that can be downloaded each day, and a video to go with that shows you how we do it. So all the measurements and details are given in the pattern notes, but I'm just here to show you how it's all done. And we are uncovering some amazing evidence in this mystery. So we are up to part 10. So we're pretty much halfway through, so that's pretty exciting. So we've been gathering all sorts of evidence as we go. We have got some evidence in our evidence pool up here that we haven't quite finished, and then we're just uncovering other pieces of evidence as we go. So this time for part 10 we're having some fun. We've been pulling from our pool again. We've got using our B2, so we're drawing from that. We're cutting out a whole lot of little squares, and then we're also going into our pool of small pieces of fabric, and we're going to be cutting some rectangles from that. So I've gone ahead, I've done quite a bit of the work because we've already done some of this before, so I don't want to go over old ground all the time. But what we find is that it's amazing how some evidence starts off looking the same as previous evidence, but things happen and it ends up being quite different. So what we've got this time is some small rectangles and some small squares. So we have actually made a unit like this that was larger, but we'll just quickly go through this one. So as I said, I've already done a fair bit of it. So what we've got is a square here, and on the back side I've marked a diagonal line, and we're going to place that on one end of the rectangle so that those edges match, and we're going to sew that line. So I'll just go to the machine and we'll do that. That line's out of the way. And then we need to trim that seam. Because this is so small, I'm not trying to save those corners particularly, so we just need to trim to leave ourselves a little seam allowance, and then press that seam, and we can just press it towards the corner. And then we want to do the same thing with the other square on the other end, and we're wanting the diagonal to go in the opposite direction this time, so we can just go ahead and do that and stitch that along that diagonal line, and that should overlap at that top edge. So when we open that out, it overlaps there. So we'll just trim that seam as well, and we'll give that a press. And that's all looking pretty good. So what we have now, because as I said, I've already gone ahead and done some, so I've ended up using two colours, two fairly similar colours. These are what I had to start with for my rectangles. They could be different colours, they could even all be the same colour. It wouldn't really matter a lot. We want to now join those into little stacks of 2. So I'll go ahead and join this one, so we just pop that over the top, and so where we've got that meeting in there, that should be where our seam comes through, so that we get a nice point. And one way to help with that is to sew it with that on the top side, so that you can actually see where you're sewing through to get that point as near as possible, so that you have a nice point. So when you're sewing with small pieces like this, you sometimes have to take just a little bit of extra care to make sure that things are sitting well, but that point has come up really nicely, so we can press that now. Now we've got seams coming in from both directions here, but because there's a sort of a double seam at that point, it seems to be easier to press that seam up away from this point, rather than try and make the point fold down. So there we've got our nice little 2 stack of rectangles, and we've got 4 of those. And that's because we want to place them so that So the reason for the two colours is that you might end up with this nice little pinwheel of this stronger, in my case the stronger green, but it could be different colours, or you may not be too worried, you're happy with just the little points going in all directions. So now we want to join those together into pairs, and so where this seam meets here for the middle, that should nestle with those two seams, so if you can make that work, that will help it sit with nice points in the centre. Can be a little tricky, but it's worth taking a little bit of time to get it right. And we want to join this one as well. So again, that one that's going to meet in the middle, those should nestle. We can press those . You should have two units that look much the same at the moment, and we turn one of them round. So by turning, if we press them both the same way with the seams and things, when we turn them, the seams will be going in opposite directions, so they should nestle in that centre there. So you just want to try and keep an eye that these are going to nestle so that the seams, these points, all come together. They should, because you've been sewing with a nice accurate seam allowance. I know you have. Let's hope mine work. Sometimes it doesn't. Just keep an eye on that middle bit. I'm hoping this is all going to work nicely. I imagine why it wouldn't. Some evidence can be quite tricky to gather. Woohoo, and we are looking good. So what we've got now is a seam with a whole lot of points meeting in the middle. So I'm going to press that seam open, and that will help alleviate some of that bulk in the centre there, although it will still be a little bulky, because when you've got all those diagonal corners and things coming in, it does make for a little bulky bit. But with a little bit of gentle encouragement, these things all work out. Sometimes when you're following an investigation, solving a mystery, there's a little bit of gentle encouragement required of certain things to get to the bottom of everything. It's looking pretty good. So we've got a piece of evidence for this time. This is number 10, so we're going to label it. We've got our labels that we can write on. We're going to label it 10A, so that we can come back and find that piece of evidence again later when we need to bring it together, because I'm quite sure it'll need to come together with some other evidence in order to solve this mystery. So that was it for part 10, and I will see you again with part 11.